this is a new thing that is going to change the next revolution that is going to happen. We are very adamant that this is something that's going to change the world. Over the period of time, the 2 promise out of 3 was always phased out. The architecture itself needs to be redesigned.
Murphy John is Chief Growth Officer at StorX Network, a decentralized cloud storage platform powered by XDC. With over 2 decades of experience in internet infrastructure and technology, he focuses on decentralized storage, digital innovation, and the future of cloud systems.
Your data is never lying as a single location, a single file. We as a service provider can never snoop into your data. The power should not reside with single people.
What advantages do you have to access, say, the best talent in the world?
The best organization should never be limited to
Welcome everybody to today's Jointcast. Today we go halfway around the world to introduce you to a new colleague of mine, Murphy Joe or Murphy John, and he is the Chief Growth Officer at StorX. Murphy, tell us your story. You've got a pretty innovative company with a very interesting position, but I'd like to know, what was your educational background? What kind of places did you work, and perhaps where in the world that led you to this unique company that you're a central part of today?
First of all, Jim, thanks for having me. It's really wonderful to be a part of the great podcast. As I told you, I'm Murphy John and I work as Chief Growth Officer with StorX. So I'll start my background and then I get into why I'm here, what kind of things brought me here. So I started pretty well for the last 2 decades. I've been in this industry, specifically dedicated to internet infrastructure, managing the infrastructure. It started late in 1998 when I come from India. I come from a city called Mumbai. That's one of the financial capital of India. Internet was just coming advent. Internet is just happening and we kind of just graduate and come out of the college and see this new whole scenario. We were like mesmerized by the way how internet was coming out and how it was changing, going to change the world. The benefits is offered. Now, stay from in the country like India, we were never exposed to something like an internet or something, the benefits that it could offer. And we saw that there's really going to be a big future in it. And we went all into that. We started training ourselves. And fortunately, we were one of the few guys who got in the first internet connection. I don't know, you must not be aware of it. In India, we used to have 2 kind of connection. One was the dial-in connection where you should just get like the text version of the internet. And the other one is the premium connection where you can actually browse from the internet. So I come from the text background. We had to submit because we were student, we were offered some good fancy concessions and then we were able to learn the fantastic thing. I was able to specialize then. I did a lot of courses around internet, got to learn from a lot of wonderful people. And that's how I began my journey in this whole excellent idea, the world, fascinating world of internet. And evidently that was the start of internet phase in India as well. So people were just adopting, people were very new to the idea, like what's internet, how it could make changes. And when we used to talk people that there's something that is going to connect everyone together and there's going to be communication sends over it and there's going to be emails and those were like fascinating things. People were telling like we were telling something like a Harry Potter story. If you would like to join it today, all people were very skeptical, like it's a new thing, how it's going to take up. But we were very adamant that this is something that's going to change the world. And then we started doing very well. I joined this company in the sales. I was in charge of talking to customers, setting up the internet infrastructures, managing the security issues. And that's how the whole phase started. And during this wonderful journey that I started, I got in touch with a lot of people, a lot of leaders, because internet was very new. I was introduced to the best people in the organization, the topmost people who were like new generation leaders who had some wonderful thoughts. That dwelt a lot in me. And because of that, I was able to talk to them. I was able to pick up all the intelligent part from them. They guided me a lot. I truly credit all the developments that has happened in my life because of that interaction that I could have with those big leaders, interact with them, because they were very keen to understand what internet was all about. And this was something like the innovators who could take decisions in big organizations. That's how my whole journey started. And I was with this organization all along the way. We went from like 1 customer to almost like 5,000 customers in India and many Fortune 500 companies were taking service from this company. And we grew it. Then I started hitting like what would be the new thing. And there was this cloud which was having so much of problems, the security problem, the problem of abuse of data, all around. Prices were very high. So we started like looking what was the, and then the blockchain was just taking up. So I found that this was the new thing that is going to happen. And I started looking ways in which I could plug in my knowledge that I had about the internet infrastructure, data securities, everything around that. And I then plugged into the new development. That development was happening around blockchain. And that's where I found a founder, Mr. Handy Barot. He's a very charismatic guy. He was traveling all around the world and he was having this idea of doing something very unique where we could bring in blockchain and my experience together. And then that's we started doing some brainstorming, looking for some ideas, quickly looking at things that work, that could not work. And then he invited me to join the company. And here I am now at StorX. So at StorX, my role is basically the chief growth officer. That means I take care of getting in new clients, introducing to this whole innovative idea of decentralized cloud storage, because it's a very, very new and innovative concept. People are still not aware of it. People are very skeptical to take, because just to be very secure, nobody gets thrown out of the job for storing the data in Amazon, Google, or anybody. They're like in standards for them. So that's my job, to go and convince them, work with them for POCs. I work a lot with developers community, but I work with them in partnership. They have a lot of excellent ideas where they're looking for some kind of ways in which they can secure the data. So that's my current role. It's very innovative and very challenging as well. You get to work with a lot of customers, get a lot of success ratios. We get some failures also where we see that this project is really not working and that we had to scrap the project. So that's my journey. So day to day, it has all been throughout the thing, learning from the leaders, getting those nuggets of information and smart things to the journey.
Let me ask you this then. And that's a great introduction. We didn't talk about this before, but when I was very young Air Force officer, I was actually on a very primitive version. We didn't even call it the internet then. It was really the ARPANET. What I find interesting is it sounds as though when years ago, probably at a pretty young age, you were probably a significant internet service provider within India. So you were able to talk to large companies. You were able to provision services for them. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And that was a very initial phase. So we got to talk to the top leaders, the cream leaders in the organization, because somebody who has that innovative idea and can understand would be very few guys who are there heading the organization, or they may be working anywhere in the leadership role.
So let's say, because I've got colleagues here, I'm sure everyone has colleagues at companies or organizations in the United States where, let's say, they suffer a ransomware attack or something, and part of their solution getting through that is probably going to be to call up one of those, let's say, very popular cloud-based services, but that kind of service is probably a centralized service that may not be as resilient as the customer may think. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'll just take you the background of what happened first and what we're currently. So basically, when 20 years back, this full cloud revolution started. Before that, the data was always lying on premises with the customers. Customers used to watch the data and they would protect the data with whatever might it can be. And then this development that happens around cloud, and cloud companies started offering. First was obviously Amazon came in with this such a wonderful innovative thing. Then what happened was, when they were selling these services, they found there was a lot of like objection inside the organization, did not wanted to part with data. So that was three fundamental promises that the cloud services provider, like hyperscalers, gave to the in-premises or the organization as such. The three promises were: one, that they're going to offer infinite level of scalability. That's one thing. The second is they are going to be very, very secure. And the third was the cost was always be less compared to what it was in the premises, on premises cost. And when they were doing this kind of thing, and they were very sure, and a lot of companies, organization benefited from it. They were able to close down the data centers. They were able to have infinite number of scalability, because you can always scale up servers with a cloud compared to what you can do in-house, because OPEX is off. Obviously, it's like a lot of cost, a lot of manpower required, a lot of this thing. So, but what happens over the period of time, they found that there was this promise of the two promise out of three was always phased out. One was the cost. Now it has become like the cost is almost significantly higher compared to what it was. The second was the security aspect of it. The security aspect happened because the way the whole architecture of this system is, multiple people, if not all, are storing the data as a single file in a single location. That means if you have a file and if you want to store it in a cloud, it would take that file and it would store as it is. The other option is you encrypt the file and store on the server. So even if you're doing either of them, the file would always lie as single server. If your ISP is encrypting it, the keys will always lie the service provider. That means if there is a hack, anybody can delete your file irrespective of whatever it is. The second one is your ISP is capable to see in your data because the encryption keys lies always with them. We started thinking like this is, and there were cases like ransomware, which is of course now one of the biggest threat to data. It's almost a nightmare for all CIOs, CDOs, which keep them awake. And if an organization is infected with ransomware virus, it becomes very, very difficult for them. What are the options that they have? The architecture itself needs to be redesigned. That's where the decentralized storage comes into the service. Like in this decentralized cloud storage like StorX, what we do is we don't store the file as a single file in a single location. So if you're using a decentralized service provider like StorX, what we do is we encrypt your file in your devices itself. So the file is full encrypted with a private key in your own laptop or your desktop, and then the encrypted file is transferred to the server where it gets broken down into multiple small fragments, and that those fragments are replicated for backup, and then these fragments are all distributed across a huge network. That means if your data is never lying as a single location, a single file, we as a service provider or any node operator who is storing your data can never snoop into your data because your data is never lying as a single piece of data. It's always encrypted and it's a fragment of data. You will never get to know where the entire structure of the data is without this encryption. So that's what it makes us resilient. Yeah.
This is interesting, and I don't want to lose the audience on technical stuff, but I have to ask this question because you were around at the beginning of the internet, it sounds like. This sounds to me very much what happened with the original ARPANET. When they first started, they decided, I think, in large part for reliability. I think in the early 1980s, the whole ARPANET moved to the TCP, transmission control protocol architecture. And it sounds like almost the same thing. Rather than having a centralized source of reliability, it pushed it to the edges, which greatly increased the whole reliability of the system. It looks like history is repeating itself. Am I thinking about this the right way?
Yes, I think the architecture of the internet were all with the same thought that it should not, the power should not reside with single people. It should always be distributed, and there should be a source of truth which could be distributed to people easily without any censorship.
Okay. So tell us more then about the company. Tell us more about StorX because and it sounds like you're pretty new to offering distributed. How are you communicating that to the clients that you've had all these years?
Just to come back, we started in the year 2021, so we are like 5 years old, we're not so new. And our company is a remote only organization. That means most of our employees are all distributed across all geography. We were very fortunate. Our founder has a very good vision, so we were very fortunate to follow him. He said from day one we need to be distributed because we are a distributed organization. That was the whole idea that he had. We are a distributed organization and we provide distributed storage. So we should work on those parameters. And it was like very well we've been able to manage. We do have great relationship with all our members, but it's always distributed so people can enjoy their life as well as work for the organization. And because of it, we were able to work with some great people across different geographies, across different time zones. Those that gives us a lot of, and because of that, the one great advantage that we have is we were able to understand people from different cultures, understand people from different geography. So that's something we bring in the best and we work together for the organization.
That's interesting. So it's not just that the services that you offer rely on, let's say, a distributed architecture. Your entire corporate structure mirrors the same thing.
That's correct.
Can we say that you have a hybrid model? Have the people who work at StorX ever come together? How many countries are you distributed throughout? Tell us more about how a company with very, very modern architecture like that functions today.
We are a hybrid model, but we come across for various occasions wherever there are any gatherings, where then any events happening across the world. That's where we all come together and we pitch in as a team. We participate across various business events, fairs, and exhibitions. That's when our team come together, and that's where we get to meet physically people one to other. Otherwise, we just like on the screen. And over the meetings, that's when we make. That's kind of a different model together that's binding us together because we are from different culture, but we have the same ethos to work together towards this decentralization where power is distributed to all.
That's pretty fantastic. And I'm curious because it sounds as though StorX was formed originally with this model. You didn't migrate to it. You started this way.
That's right. We started, start body.
Can you comment that when you have this pure either remote or hybrid model, what advantages, for example, do you have to access, say, the best talent in the world?
I think post COVID, that's when the whole model, the hybrid model took over, and that's where we started. Fortunately or unfortunately, great talent was available all across the world, and because we are hybrid, we are able to like pick up an engineer who's very good in from Asia, and pick up a guy, sales guy who's very good in sales from US or Europe, and we got twin to work together, and that been the best because if we were an office located at a physical geography at specific location, it would never be impossible to get all these people work together in a single office under the same premises because people don't like to travel across different geographies, different time zones, families, and all these things. I think it was the best model that was suited to us. And as I share the ethos of a founder, Mr. Handy Barrett, that he said that the best organization should never be limited to a geography or a specific location.
This is interesting because it reminds me of a book a lady named Lisette Sutherland wrote years ago, and she wrote it maybe 5 years before COVID, and it's called Work Together Anywhere. And I always thought it was a very prescient article, and my guess is her phone was ringing a lot after COVID started and people were being thrust into this remote environment. Murphy, can you give us a snapshot? Where do you span across the world? What different locations do you touch?
Okay, so our offices like we are spread across Dubai, India, across different cities, Pakistan, and we have people from Europe as well who help us out. And of course, we have some consultant in the US, but they're not full time, but we do work with them very closely.
Is that still in New York?
Oh, no, no, it's towards the valley, Silicon Valley.
When we connected and we first started exchanging on email, what really caught my attention was you said that despite technology, and obviously you've really been focused on high tech for a long time, you said that despite technology, human power is always vital. It's the most important thing. Let's develop that some more.
I think still it's the most important fact that is there. It's an it's something that decides your character, decides the success, and decides your mindsets. Is the most important fact. As I would say, we need to have a mindset to get the organization up and running and to success level. That cannot be replicated by any AI or a stuff because those are just like routine mundane tasks which are just modified, basically optimized. But the creative thinking, the human element has to be there to guide and check. That's that. And that's thing I think the most important aspect. I truly believe that always.
Let's go a little further. You brought up creativity as the something that can't be replaced. What in your experience have you found? Tell us a little bit more about that. What can be replaced, what can't?
I'll take the perspective of my own organization because people are doing much more things. So it can comment on behalf of anybody. We were able to work around the data and a lot of tasks which were like just repetitive. Those were all automated. So that's one thing. Creative elements, we do take a lot of input from AI, but it's always the human element which decides like what has to go in. In fact, we take a lot of raw data from AI and then try to work on human elements. We take a lot of raw data from AI in terms of creative advertising on those things. We take a lot of input from AI and then we turn to get the human mind to get this all. And the best one is taken up and the others are just discarded that way. And other things like the whole lot of monitoring process because we have a very complex setup of servers, networks, and all those things that needs to be monitored, that needs to be challenged, and all those things. They were all given to tasks. They were all like agents who were handed over the things. They were all generated to the human base element was removed and it was all automated.
Let's say that there's a young engineer, maybe still in university listening to this podcast, Murphy. They're very bright, maybe like you years ago. They're thinking about getting into a technical field, maybe just like you, but they're reading in their newspapers or watching on television that AI is replacing a lot of things. What advice do you have for that young person to make sure that they can harness their human power rather than be at risk of being functionally replaced? What advice do you have for that young, smart engineer?
I think the best part I did had that kind of interaction with the college students a few weeks back. That was the most dominant question, that how can we grow our organization? How can we grow ourselves? Because the AI is replacing the first part of the job. That's the junior ones, and the freshers are just being removed out because of the AI. But I think this great thing that you need to network a lot with people and talk to people and understand what's happening. Plus, of course, AI is very, very important. They need to know what is the skills they want to practice, and they need to hone the skill right from the university rather than waiting for them to complete the graduation and then go and try out something that works or not. They need to constantly be in touch with some mentors, the industry mentors. So if there's somebody who can help us in terms of technology, and somebody like you who can guide them in terms of developing their power, because these are two, three elements which are really required for for any human to grow. First they watch, because what happens is, if he is not trained, where he will not be absorbed. But if he doesn't have the mindset, even that time, without AI also, he'll not be like a great asset for any organization.
Here's how I'm hearing this, and I think this is really contemporary and useful advice because, and thank you for mentioning how I try to help people, grow the human side. It seems to me as though, let's say you're the bright engineer, you've always been one of the smartest people in school, and you've been rewarded for focusing on developing your technical skills. You brought up networking, and because this happens a lot, someone has strong technical skills, and then they're told at work, hey, you've got to go develop your people skills a little bit. And next thing you know, they sign up for my class. So I'm really happy about that. But that may be someone who has focused on their technical skills in the workplace for, say, 5, 10, or 15 years before they call up and say, hey, Jim, I want to develop it. If I'm listening to you correctly, you're saying don't wait those 5, 10, or 15 years, start developing them now.
In fact, it is very, very important now at this point of time, because that's the one thing that will separate you from all the others. So it's like you need to have the technical skill as well as the human skill. So rather than waiting for 15 years, you need to start from right now. That's going to separate you from the bulk of the people who are there, who are either very good, very smart technologically, or very smart in human. You need to have both of us, because AI is kind of the way in which it's developing. It's going to be the integral part of work for everyone. So they need to have both the skills. Unless he has both the skills, he will not be able to manage. He cannot falter any of this. This is the same sides of the coin, which is very, very important.
Let's develop this just a little bit more because I really want this point to be stressed to people listening to this podcast, Murphy. What do you typically see today as an example of the young, very smart person who's not really networking, not really making the people connections, and maybe an example of someone younger who started developing those connections that you noticed, or maybe it's even someone that you hired because of that? Can you tell us maybe two contrasting stories that help make that point?
So we work a lot with college students. We work a lot with university students where they are in the graduation year itself. So personally, we work with them. We try to give them challenges. We pick up people based on the challenges, and somebody who's really very well are trained in the line to be programmers, to be developers in our organization. So we had, without naming the person of full, I'll just tell about the story that I had personally. So we had this very intelligent person who was very good in programming, but the only problem was he did not have human skills. So he was so wonderful. We hired him. He worked with us for a few years. Then he went to one of the other places. He worked there for 4 years. Now, since he had technology forefront, his technology skills were very nice. He was able to work in both the organization, and suddenly what happened? The organization which hired him closed down. Now this person has no networking. He doesn't have anyone who he can talk to, and he's like stranded without any job. So that's a very challenging scenario for him. He's finding it very difficult to talk to people. In his whole life, he's worked for us and he's worked for another organization. And there too, he was just working purely focused on the development skill. And now he doesn't have human skill to talk to people. He can go and network with people. He cannot be a leader. He can be a good developer. So that's basically, and what happens is now, since the developer part is replaced by AI, he's not able to get a job in any other organization. So that becomes a challenge for him, and he's grown out in certain states that he'll not be able to go to point zero again and start it once again, because he's set his mind in a certain way.
And what's the contrasting story where perhaps you encountered the person who at the younger age did develop the networking skills?
That also, so I've been very fortunate to see. So when I talk to university students, They do their internships, and I've been called by college professors to analyze their work when they did internship and kind of guide them. So we find some students who are really very, very wonderful in their work. Even at the workplace, when we interview a lot of people, we find that people are really very excellent, but they have both the skills together. So they kind of have the technical skill, but they also have manpower skills. They can go gel with the team very well. They can communicate to the leaders, and they can communicate to their subordinates. So I think this is the great skill required to be like in today AI world. You need to be able to express yourself to your subordinates as well as to your senior team members or the management members. That's the requirement. That's why you're there for a connect, right? Otherwise, it would not make any sense. So I think I've seen people who like started working very early. They made right contacts in the industry. They were studying in the colleges. They were creating networks also. They went for industry events. They did training like wonderful people like you. They had mentors who guided them how to communicate. They practiced them well, and that's how they grew in their life. So we could see them growing in their life. They have achieved certain level of success now, still very early, but still they have some kind of success that is built in that way. So that's I think that's wonderful, and I have seen both the scenarios, and I do agree with you that we need to have those skills built in, and we need to have it in the right way.
I'm so glad. I'm very grateful for this message. I really hope this message of yours, Murphy, goes far and wide. If we're done with that point, I want to return to StorX and a message, let's say, to chief information officers, some who I know, on why StorX. Tell us more. If somebody's, let's say, a chief information officer, and let's say they've subscribed to services to all these, large providers we all know the names of, tell us more about advantages that you're offering and how to get in touch with you and find your organization so they can try you out.
So this is a very unique way in which you can secure the data for all the chief information. We are a decentralized cloud storage platform, very unique, very innovative to secure your data. So we are something like we are an open source project, and we are ensured by the entire architecture rather than the brand name. So we go by the way in which our system is designed. If any of the information of chief information officers, CTOs, board members, or founders or developers want to get in touch with us, they can get in touch with on StorX.io. StorX.io is a website. We work a lot with industry leaders. We really work in kind of developing POCs. We work with developers, give them generous discounts. We give them free offers to work with them, develop the software for 1 year and see how it's testing and all those things. So we are always working, we're always in partnership, and that's how we have been evolved all these years. So anybody who wants to get in touch with you can follow us on social media channels. I will share the links with you so you can post it in the description. And storx.io is our website. So they can come to our website, check the features out. And we would love to talk to you, understand your requirement, partner with you.
That's good. One of the things that I'd like for you to do after we're done here is please feel free to send me additional websites and links, and I'll ask for those to be added to the show notes.
Sure. That would be really basic.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. I think we may have covered almost everything we wanted to, but let me ask you this because I'm curious. When people do come to StorX and you have this wonderfully distributed, not just organization but service offering, what types of things does StorX itself as an entity do to develop, let's say, these young engineers that you want to develop the human skills? I'm a little curious what you do to train them.
So as I told you, I work a lot with universities. I work with them in developing their skills. I take sessions to ensure that they are aware of what's the new development happening, what's the development around AI. I would do a lot of like generous grants for working for intelligent people to work with smart developers to ensure that we give them a lot of credits, free points on StorX to ensure. So this is in way which partner with students and ensure that they also ramp them up, because this, I think we are in a very hyper connected world, but we're not connected with people in the same way as we connect in terms of technology. So I'm connected with you. I'm connected to my near and dear ones very well in WhatsApp, in email, but not in the same way humanly. So that goes a long way. This thing.
Which of the people skills do you find that the young people need the most?
I think patience, one good skills. That is one very important thing that people need to develop in this world, and empathy. I think these are two things that are very, very important.
I really like that, patience and empathy. It's interesting that we were just talking about both of those, mostly empathy, in the course that we just finished this past week. So, are there any other things you need to share that we haven't covered yet, Murphy?
I think a lot of development happening around our project. There are a lot of new innovative things coming up. You can stay connected to us on our social media channel. Anything you need to get in touch with us, we would be happy to partner with you, work out some services, solutions around storage.
Well, I really appreciate this. And, again, to the audience, I think this joint cast we're doing right now is a model of just what we've been talking about distributed, because you're 8 time zones away from me on another part of the world. And look at this, we're connecting in the same way you've just been talking about. Thank you so much, Murphy Joe. Everybody take a look at StorX, because I think what we're hearing and seeing right now is the next generation in terms of architecture for secure networks. Thank you so much, Murphy Joe.
Thank you very much, Jill. Thanks for having me in the podcast.